The U.S. military sunk China warship because it expanded claims South China Sea during pandemic. The U.S. is slamming the communist Chinese language authorities for increasing illegal claims in the South China Sea, whereas the world is distracted by the lethal coronavirus pandemic. The State Division responded to final week's collision of a Chinese-language Coast Guard ship and a Vietnamese fishing vessel close to the disputed Paracel Islands. The South China Morning Put-Up reported Tuesday. State Division spokeswoman Morgan Ortigles mentioned the U.S. was severely involved by stories of the incident, which occurred around midnight Thursday, when 8 Vietnamese crew members fell overboard as their vessel sank. The Chinese-language vessel retrieved them and turned them over to Vietnamese authorities, claiming the Vietnamese boat rammed the Chinese-language vessel earlier than sinking. This incident is the most recent in an extended string of People's Republic of China actions to say illegal maritime claims and draw back its Southeast Asian neighbors in the South China Sea. Ortigles mentioned, referring to the individuals as Republic of China. She mentioned the Chinese-language communist social gathering ought to stay centered on supporting worldwide efforts to fight the worldwide pandemic and to cease exploiting the distraction or vulnerability of different states to develop its illegal claims in the South China Sea. The assertion additionally identified that, because the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, Beijing has introduced new analysis stations on its Navy bases at Fiery Cross Reef and Subi Reef, and landed particular Navy plane on Fiery Cross Reef. The individuals' Liberation Military Navy exerts management over the two reefs, and calls them Yongshu and Hubi, respectively. However, different Southeast Asian nations dispute China's possession of the reefs. Chinese-language Premier Li Keqiang spoke with Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc following the maritime incident and referred to as for cooperation to curb the coronavirus pandemic. The Chinese-language state information company Xinhua reported. Chinese Communist Party Overseas Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian mentioned Tuesday that the U.S. repeatedly dispatched fighter jets to fly over the South China Sea in violation of China's maritime rights, and referred to as on Washington to not hyperlink maritime disputes with the COVID-19 pandemic. Zhao needed to stroll again claims that the U.S. military introduced COVID-19 to the Chinese-language metropolis of Wuhan in a press convention Tuesday, saying the accusation had been raised on his private Twitter account, and that it was in response to American stigmatization of China. Chinese-language ambassador to America Qui Xianke derided Zhao publicly for the comment in a March interview with Axios. A Zoom tank affiliated with Peking College launched a report Friday, claiming practically 600 Vietnamese fishing boats had entered waters China claims it controls in the month of March. The Chinese-language communist social gathering has been filling in reefs to create islands that home Navy and communication services and has thumbed its nostril at us protests, saying America has no enterprise interfering in Chinese-language affairs in the South China Sea, while the coronavirus pandemic has stalled much of the world's activity. China has kept up its aggression in the disputed South China Sea, actions that analysts said could deepen the mistrust between Washington and Beijing. China's continued hostility toward its Southeast Asian neighbors in the contested waters appear at odds with the soft power that Beijing has sought to portray as the outbreak in the mainland receded. In the past few weeks, China has sent help to countries hit hard by the pandemic and rallied for global coordination in managing the outbreak. But the sinking of a Vietnamese fishing boat by a Chinese surveillance vessel earlier this month once again brought into the spotlight Beijing's multi-year assertions in the South China Sea, in which it claims nearly the entire waterway. Other main claimants to the resource-rich waterway include the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan and Brunei. Fundamentally, China has not let the COVID-19 outbreak dampen its pursuit of foreign policy issues. In addition to the South China Sea, Beijing has also authorized Air Force flights around Taiwan in the past month. Kelsey Broderick, China analyst at consultancy Eurasia Group. China may be hoping to both send a message to other countries involved in the South China Sea, though China will not back down under any circumstances, and send a message to a domestic population about the strong leadership of the party. The coronavirus, which has infected over 2 million people globally, first appeared in the Chinese city of Wuhan in December last year. There have been accusations both domestically and internationally, though Chinese authorities ignored early warnings about the outbreak and attempted to downplay its severity. Issues surrounding the South China Sea have for years been a point of contention in the relationship between the US and China, the world's top two economies competing for geopolitical influence in Asia-Pacific. The US doesn't claim any parts of the South China Sea as its own but has long promoted the freedom of navigation by air and sea across the waterway, which Washington has accused Beijing of militarizing.